제 전부 zondan 형이장 zondan 모는 전부 나죠. 다 그러던 건전도 실물도 좀 맞게 잘라 기성서로 내저로 생이 정금서 저거 기준나 일라. 지금 방송자랑 소라도 공개 또만 보러 신길. 공개 또만 보러 신길로 공개 또만 보러 신길로 우상선상 의미가 배차만 지난서. 我今家人都说持愿解如来真实义，为度化一切众生，请大家发无上殊胜的菩提心。第一次三的没把，九的没把，二的没把，二的没把，正没并进的需要超级人格呢。伢来只你有把nam子上就生活才娘不吃了，第二的有把nam将他们是什么吃草什么样那的人地不是接动。第二的上小比怎么吃的多了，小这呢老比上就生活才娘不。 Chirar nam dang tele tele ki lam ne juru shibi semchin chang me par yap chang mang bo te dog rang rang gar pu dang me tog dam chur je tog de devjang so ba lam chupang bar bar shis shan ju sang wa sai nyang bo dam nyam dal ho ba semchin te dong no shan ju sang wa sai nyang bo lo ba lam ti ne ke odor shi de shir mar do pe shan chu lap ko ba shar tag yin no semchin te dog no ngu no kara to ma me pa ne ko ro ne sa 캠상ар 수바 종지점에 그런 좋아 죽을 등을 명하고 대도는 상주성과 사이 냠부 이게 치비 현재도 샴바도 신도자비 몰음라테네 랑랑 감제바 토바고 스캅데르 대도 담치 섬치 작섬지요 네서 하고네 셈라 가와도 좋아 찻메 파르티데 대정서발라 묵무쯤 버프다버시소 디제 상집 정든데 상집 정든데 역설지 상집 정든데 역설지 독다비 봉바경네 삼드메 바 조드메 바 자드메 바 냐드메 바 정메 비시아 초진직된네 로비 상습선 화상화 전부 사이냥 부처라 남겨올라 저때 엔더크터 갑자도 더크닝 마르가 도원직된데 sem적 더러가 남기 sem라던 더러시데 영도 발람란 즈브르시소 데스타나 영 지착지 당 지착 니기 semchen semchen 남기 wakchang ambano genre maniso 데라더기 주라시아 초지 tabje chembolaptene wombor nova gajigla chuto precision tapionela tapresibago gevim jeven chan gajigla nandanji kurve jeve tapresibago momba gajigla yida rambuti so darshede lamyang tabala tsabago lengambi semchen gajigla chartrashijang tapionela tapartiver maniso semchen tedagna tertavi kyabr chembo yope daki kyang chira na soban jete jojo shibarte semchen lala tibi zis na da lala vadme zis na da lala la da zis na da lala la ha da jig zis na da lala la jo da naksir da chlong da pangjong da chu da zam da chemig da chumba la so be go ne semchen ted juru shi so yang la 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 jashin ji zig dang la 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 chang bi zig dang ko lo ji ri zig dang gen nin ji zig dang ger wu zig dang long bo zig dang dan don ji zig dang ger long ma dang gen nin ma ne zong te nyang tu dang zhap chum ba dang rang sang jie dang shang chi sang hui shang chi sang wa la so bi zig ji tar shi ba go te dang tam shi yang sang ji ko ni zig zig no ne tar na ma yan no kyo ji tu dang da ku kar wa chi ma bo ka sha te dırvır kavir dik rapto zırvır rapto nambi semsin te tok jar shi so terta na yo da qattar mani pa da likim je men bi semsin lala ansung go ne sir ton ne dingir chimbo myongwa go ti se da qasam chi saksam ji pup chang ne nan ji kur wa tam da kyo ki yilla tambra shula Amje jinjirten de ne zonte Dokasım çısaksım di popcanın nandın da yukarı vaktamna kötü yılla çambır şola. Mamji jinjirten de ne zonte Ozon Jarab Shambanjik Tenji comes of Shumbani Simchin or Dungur Tamchaktan the Prade Sound Giver Long Tamba Matub Givar the Brother Shawa Young Tse Jikten Tamchi Shanchu Sanwa and Jikten Tamchi Shanchu Sanwa Sai Nyambu Chura Namakchu Nabakchi the Korzigs Kirte Dong Chima Vir Jam Sangi Jundan de Landerkut sorto, Dagna, Carvaci, Tomame Pane, Sanji Shinji Lavlatin, Zamcher Girtov, some Jimmy Badan, Sheriff Chimbornam, Tobne, Shopjin Jitin Shia, Trojakan, Longushima, Nijijangonam, Rnams, Jitin Revision, the Treasury Kayon Shia, Trojan Yete, Trura Revision, the Simpson Shia, Troja Doroshi. The Dogjan comes of the Thousand Doro Chin and Koru Chin Chetan, Tanda Pratim Yun Jinda. Nyanji Deva Tobra Shi, Tirnam Sanji Chula Giva, Shawa Chongzu Gibate, Nyangmak Chigdan, Tubak Chigdan, Shemak Chigdan, Erdupsung Chigdan, Strassi Mochik Zamgi Givisa Giba Namkyan, Daka Rim, Gen Jarni, Pambar Jetcher Tobra Shi so, Jondan Deji, Tiki, Shirab Namji, Leading Ambasim Tetala, Tetra Tule, Chongvarum, Zad Mulgus, Lang Samda. Soro Jondande Shirip Gilling and be Simson Tedala, Tata Tile, Chongramzat Mogu, so Denis Sanji Shanchusan was saying young bola, Tochang Burgon and the Kato Quasato, Laxo, Rigiva, Keji Chertambabjan Jisayer, Keji Karache, Toma Mepan and Tai, Simson Tamjabran. Shanchip the same kidney Mawa, Tedor, the Simpson Yonsu, John, and Gumber Shanchip and Yero, saying Yambo, saying Monum Dim Dole, Cherana. Chigdan DB Legarte and Nipago. 下面我们讲那个地藏经然后今天是星期五，明天后天没有课。然后下一周的话，那也是基本上是星期一和二，过后的话可能3和4吧，就是也有一些课，但具体怎么样呢？就现在也不知道。那么今天，我们讲的。
Well, let us continue with the Ksitigarbha Sutra.
前面简单的，跟大家说一下这个地藏经的这个地藏菩萨的这个功德啊，
So, before the actual teaching, let us get to know briefly about the merit of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. The merit of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, as we studied before, in fact, there's a continuum treasury sutra where it stated stories of the merit of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva and the image of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. For example, there's a record of genuine insights where it says that there was once a monk in Song Dynasty, and that monk don't take proper care of the wealth of the Sangha and don't observe precepts very well and spend his life in a rather distracted lifestyle. And when he passed away, when he died, within about 3 days, his body still kept warmth. And after 3 days, he woke up and he wept and confessed. And when other people asked him what happened, he replied saying that after he died, he reached to a gate of a city, and over there appeared a monk. when he inquired about the monk, the other monk, and the other monk said that he's Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. And then Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva said that when you were alive when you were alive as a human being, you made my images, though without making offering. However, because of the reason of making my images and statues, therefore I'm going to give you a teaching, and if you can memorize it, you will not be reborn in the hell realm. And the verse goes, if one wants to know the Buddhas of the 3 times, one should observe in such a way that all Tathagatas are mind. Once he memorized this stanza, he then continued walking to the Yama. And when the Yama asked him what did he do, what kind of merits and meritorious things or virtuous things that he did, he said that he didn't really practice lots of virtuous deeds. And on top of that, he didn't observe pure precepts, and he created lots of negative deeds. And the only thing that he could memorize was that stanza that he memorized. So the Yama then asked him to recite it. After reciting this sutra, upon reciting this sutra, the whole there's so many sentient beings alleviated from suffering and liberated from the hell realm. And then he recited the sutra, this stanza again, and upon reciting, more and more sentient beings alleviated and attained liberation. And at that time, the Yama said, okay, you can stop now. And that's when he came back to life again. So that's a story that is related to this stanza. And this stanza is, after he woke up, he realized that this stanza is from Avatamsaka Sutra. There are different translations. Some of the translations are a bit different. I used the translation by Sikshananda. In other translations, some of them would say that it's the nature of the Dhammadhatu is all mind. However, after this experience, he tried his best to encourage others to study Avatamsaka Sutra and practice virtuous deeds. So we can understand by listening to the Sutra of Ksitigarbha, the Ksitigarbha Sutra, or building the statues or images of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, or listening to his name, or print this particular text, and so on. The merit is quite great. This is the story before the actual class. Now let's get into the actual class, the chapter 2. The assembly of innumerable emanations of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. In this chapter, it talks about the emanation of the emanations and manifestations of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. And then many Ksitigarbha Bodhisattvas would gather at Triyastrimsha's heaven. Over here, it talks about how Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva has many emanations liberating different sentient beings in different worlds. And this time, since Shakyamuni Buddha is giving a teaching at Triyastrimsha's heaven, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva called all the emanations of himself to Triyastrimsha's heaven. And then Shakyamuni Buddha was giving all of them teachings, and that's the manifestation over there. Of course, the teaching over here, I'm sure people with faith can accept without any problem, but people without faith, I think it would be difficult for them to even imagine the teaching that's given over here. According to Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra, it says that the the Dharma ocean can be entered with faith, and one can be liberated with wisdom. So with faith, you can enter the ocean of Dharma, and with wisdom, you can liberate sentient beings. Now let us look at the second chapter. It says that at that time, emanation Ksitigarbha Bodhisattvas from all the hells in hundreds of thousands of myriads of millions of unthinkable, ineffable, immeasurable, inexpressible, measureless asamkhya's of worlds all came and assembled in the palace of Kshetigarbha. Over here, it stated 4 characteristics. The first one is unthinkable by our dualistic mind, and ineffable by our relative words, and immeasurable by our dualistic and relative measurement, inexpressible by our language. So over here it means that in all these unthinkable, ineffable, immeasurable, inexpressible, measureless samkhyas of worlds all came to assemble in the palace of Kshetigarbha. In fact, there are immeasurable immeasurable places in this world. Immeasurable places all have the 6 realms, and in the 6 realms, they all have hell realm beings. And in the hell realm beings, and each hell realm has one emanation of the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. So there is the immeasurable Ksitigarbha Bodhisattvas, and all of them are gathered at Kshetigarbha heaven. Over here, we can see the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, the great masters, while they're liberating the sentient beings. During the immeasurable asamkhyas, they can manifest in different forms to benefit sentient beings, especially in hell realm, especially like Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, whom has immeasurable emanations of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, has immeasurable emanations and manifestations to liberate the suffering beings in hell realm. In fact, not only Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, I think some great masters also have immeasurable emanations as well. According to biography of Tsongkhapa, Venerable Tsongkhapa, when he was in India, Nepal, Mount Wutai, and Tushita heaven, he could manifest many emanations at the same time. And from great biographies of the past masters, we can see that in fact many sentient beings could see their body and hear their Vajra speech and receive the blessings of their wisdom. There are so many stories like such. Milarepa, for example, during the time when he was about to pass into parinirvana, in order to liberate an inferior being who has negative personality. So at that same time, he said that when I enter into parinirvana, usually I don't want to go to cities, because in the cities it is so chaotic. It is just like a king would die in a farmer's place. Therefore, I would rather die in a quiet place in solitude. But when he goes into the solitude, some disciples would ask, should we use some ways to carry you there? And he said that all my manifestations, including sickness and death, in fact, they're all appearances only. Therefore, I can get to solitude myself, as a solitude place myself. And when he goes there, he was followed by a group of his disciples. When he went to a place called Ksitigarbha, and some of the disciples saw Milarepa who already arrived there. Some disciples saw that he's somewhere else. Someone saw that he was meditating in a cave, and some saw he's actually giving teachings in other places, and some saw he's accepting offerings at a benefactor's home. And each and every one of his disciples said that they saw Milarepa in different places, and then the Venerable Milarepa said, "It is only that you don't have faith, otherwise my appearance in front of you is mere manifestation only." Therefore, the great masters at the time approaching to their parinirvana, there are possibilities of appearing in different places or other kinds of auspicious signs, such as Milarepa. When he was approaching to the time of parinirvana, in order to liberate an inferior being, he then purposely went there. But in the biography, it says that Milarepa went there but didn't successfully liberate him. Anyhow, the biography was not so clear, but we can see that the karmic force of sentient beings is inconceivable. Over here, we can see that the emanations of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva in different realms, all of them are gathered at Trishrimsha heaven. Therefore, this world is indeed quite inconceivable. The universe is indeed inconceivable. I think in the past, if we were to talk about how inconceivable this universe is, people would have been very difficult to have lots of difficulty to understand it or accept that idea. Therefore, there were lots of theories such as the heliocentric theory, the geocentric theory, but the understanding back then were not like that of the 21st century. Nowadays, through the astronomical telescope as well as the knowledge of astronomy, in fact, we have perceived many worlds or many planets and stars. We can see the photos and we can see them on our computer. We can see the whole vast space pervaded with lots of sparkling lights. And those sparkling lights, in fact, only are the ones that reflected lights. And there are still many that doesn't have any lights and cannot be shown on those photographs at all. And those are definitely innumerable. The world that human beings are living in right now, we can say that it is no other than a small speck of dust inside this whole universe, even inside of our solar system. The Earth that is so big right now that we live on, that carries all of us, in fact, is just a simple small speck inside of the whole universe or even inside the solar system. From this aspect, if there are people who would tell me that, well, it's very difficult to accept the idea of inconceivable, inexpressible, immeasurable, all of these kind of professional terms, the jargons of Buddhism, are very difficult to understand and accept. Well, I would ask you to think the other way as well. If you don't have much of the astronomy background knowledge, then by looking at the photograph, by looking at the ideas of it, the theories of it, I think for us who's unprofessional about it, who never studied it, then those ideas are also inconceivable, immeasurable, and inexpressible. Therefore, the teaching given by the Buddha 2,500 years ago, in fact, give a really vast understanding of this whole universe. And this kind of understanding, when the scientists look back, they could recognize, in fact, that Buddhism is not narrow. It is not limited at all. We can say that indeed the Buddhism teaching is quite profound and quite vast, and we should acknowledge it. So let's continue. And then over here it says, because of the spiritual power, the divine power of the Tathagata, each came from their direction with beings, also numbering in the thousands of myriads of millions of Nayutas who had obtained liberation from the karmic path, and all came holding incense and flowers to make offering to the Buddha. So there are two groups of people, or two groups of beings. One is that the ones who already liberated and came to this Dharma assembly as Bodhisattvas. And then there's a group of sentient beings, because of the blessings and divine power of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. They already aroused bodhicitta and already alleviated from suffering. So there are all kinds of sentient beings, all kinds of the sages. So the numbers. The numbers are its numbering in the thousands of myriads of millions of Nayutas. All of them came to this assembly with many different types of flowers and incense and all the offerings. They came to the Buddha and then made offering to the Buddha and started making offerings. Those groups of beings who came were irreversibly on the path to exiled perfect, complete awakening. Those were the beings who attained liberation because they had been taught by transformed by Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. These group of people were the ones who were liberated or taught by Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva to encourage them to generate bodhicitta, to mature them on the path of liberation, and then made aspiration to attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. For many long kalpas, these beings had been wandering in samsara, undergoing suffering in the 6 realms of existence, with never a momentary rest. Due to the great kindness and compassion and profound vows of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, they each had realized attainment. For the reason of great compassion and the profound vows of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, then this group of beings each had realized different levels of realization. There are the ones who attained Buddhahood, the ones who attained Bodhisattvahood, and some of them, maybe they have not attained any of those sage realization of sages, but they've realized or at least tread on the path. So all the beings from desire realm, form realm, formless realm, there are many beings who already gathered over there. Some of them heard of the name of Shakyamuni Buddha, therefore they were there, and some of them, in fact the majority of them, were there to listening to the teaching because of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, because of the profound vow and the compassion of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. So after they arrived and came to the Trishrimsha heaven, their hearts danced joyously. They're full of joy, and they gazed up in reverence at the Tathagata. So they all gazed at the Tathagata's appearance that is so magnificent and so beautiful, and their eyes never leave him for even a moment. It must not have been easy for all of them to arrive at the Triyastrimsha heaven. Therefore, they all gazed at the beautiful appearance of At that time, the world-honored one Shakyamuni Buddha stretched forth his golden arm and placed his hand on the crowns of the heads of all the emanation Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, from hundreds of thousands of myriads of millions of unthinkable, ineffable, immeasurable, inexpressible, measureless asamkhyas of worlds, and spoke these words. Shakyamuni Buddha, when he touched the crown of all the emanations of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, in fact, he touched them at the same time. In the early days, we talk about how the gurus and great masters, they would touch the crown of the disciples' heads or give them empowerments and so on. And of course, there are people who said who had different opinions about that. In fact, this is so-called giving blessings by placing their hands on the crowns are also recorded in lots of sutras, including Avatamsaka Sutra as well as Vimalakirti Sutra. The great genuine masters, in their mind stream, there is blessings as well as a siddhi, that is fruition. So through the action of touching the crown of the disciples, could cause the disciples who have great connection with them to then receive blessings. Therefore, over here, the Buddha also give blessings by placing his hand on the crowns of all the emanations of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. This action to the devoted disciples indeed is one of the best kind of blessings that one can get in front of a guru. I myself, when Phuntsog Rinpoche was still alive, I often receive blessings from him when by touching. He usually touched the crown of my head, and when or after Phuntsog Rinpoche passed away, I often receive such kind of blessings in my dreams. I, in fact, recorded those in my journal as well. I think I received more of those blessings in my dreams. For devoted students, of course, it is a blessing, it is a siddhi, but for the ones who don't have devotions, it could be a cause for wrong view. Then in such a way, it doesn't matter if you received this kind of blessings for 100 times, it is really meaningless and probably even bad for your own mind stream. And then the Buddha continued to speak, and he said that I teach and transform obstinate living beings like these in the evil age of the 5 degenerations, causing their minds to be regulated and tamed so that they can abandon the false and return to the true. They can abandon the wrong view and then return back to the righteous path. So the Buddha tamed the sentient beings in the dark age of 5 degenerations. There are 1 or 2 out of every 10 who still have evil habits. Maybe out of 10, there are about 1 or 2 sentient beings who have very solid habitual patterns that's very difficult to turn them around, to transform them. I think for those of you who never really thought about liberating sentient beings and you don't really know the difficulties in the process of liberating sentient beings because you only care about yourself. But if you were to really benefit sentient beings, then you notice out of 10, there's 1 or 2, maybe 10 to 20 out of 100, and 1 to 200 out of 1,000. So 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10. This is the kind of analysis from Shakyamuni Buddha when he was alive. The Buddha told Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, saying that it's very difficult to liberate sentient beings in the 5 degenerated age. Let's look at the great masters in the past. In their lifetime of liberating sentient beings, there's the strong counterforce from the Maras, such as the Venerable Lanchiripa. He said that in my life of liberating sentient beings, I can liberate anyone except those ones who have violated their Samaya vows. Other than those who have violated their Samaya vows that I cannot liberate, then I can liberate the rest of the sentient beings. And he passed away in a short period of time, actually. The Buddha also over here said that out of 10, there's 1 or 2 people, their habitual pattern is very solid and very difficult to transform. So the Dharma masters, Khenpos, Khenmos, you probably don't know this if you have never tried to liberate or help the sentient beings, but if you were, you would notice that there are a few that's very difficult to guide them to the right path. Indeed, very difficult. And let's look at when the Buddha was still alive and compared to our time, that is degenerated time. When the Buddha was alive, that was the average lifespan was about 100 years, and it was closer to the beginning of the good kalpa. And now we're more close to the semblance of the Dharma. And if the Buddha could liberate the beings and found that 1 or 2 out of 10 were difficult to liberate, now I think it must be 3 or 4. Especially the Buddha has such magnificent presence and great merits as well as omniscience and skillful means. So if he feels that 1 or 2 out of 10 are difficult to liberate, then we're mundane beings who generated bodhicitta, who just generated bodhicitta, and sometimes it must be very difficult for us to liberate sentient beings and to encounter difficulties as well. When we look at the biographies of great masters, in their lifetime, there are many different times, in the beginning, middle, and the end. So for sentient beings, for us who have experienced also the enthusiasm to help sentient beings, I think we should be prepared for all different kinds of difficulties, all different kinds of obstacles. I'm sure we should prepare for not able to help sentient beings, and then we should prepare to practice. We should have all different kinds of preparations. Then Shakyamuni Buddha continued to say that I too transformed into hundreds of thousands of millions of emanations and employ many skillful means for living beings. So Shakyamuni Buddha also liberated sentient beings with different emanations or manifestations. On one hand, he also has has hundreds of thousands of millions of emanation, a large number of emanations, as well as practice skillful means to liberate sentient beings. And how does he do that? So some beings are of keen capacity. They immediately believe and accept upon hearing the Dharma. There are beings who are very sharp, very keen, and once upon hearing the Dharma, they can believe and accept the Dharma and eradicate their afflictions right away. And there are some who are reaping the results of wholesome deeds because of their previous merits, and they accumulated wholesome deeds. They can attain liberation very swiftly as well. They can achieve accomplishments through energetic encouragement. And then some are ignorant and dull. They return to the true path or onto the true path only after long being instructed. Some have karma that is very heavy. Some have very negative, lots of negative karmas. They do not give rise to respect for the Dharma. According to Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra as well as the Vinaya Sutra, we can see that there are very few sentient beings who do not have connection with the Buddha. Then it would be very difficult for the Buddha to liberate them, even the Buddha has such great merits. And this kind of sentient beings, not only they don't generate veneration or a little bit of faith, or even if they do, that kind of little bit of faith can be overwhelmed by their habitual patterns of affliction very quickly, or wrong view very quickly. So for the sentient beings who have great afflictions, it's very difficult to liberate them. There are people who have all kinds of afflictions, wrong view or afflictions or jealousy and all of those. In fact, for this kind of beings, the Buddha can encounter great difficulty to liberate them. So the Buddha talked about 4 types of people. One is the ones of a keen capacity. The second is after encouragement, they can attain accomplishment. The third one is dull of capacity, and the fourth one is of heavy karma. So we can see that the sentient beings, in fact, are of very different kinds of capacities. So the Buddha would then give teachings to the different types of them, or to according to different capacities of sentient beings. The emanations of the Buddha are manifested in the forms of a man, a woman, a deva from celestial realm, or nagas, spirits, or ghosts. In mainland, people usually talk about the spirits and ghosts and sage and so on. That's especially sages and spirits are worshipped in the mainland culture. And would manifest himself as mountains, forests, streams, a plain, river, pond, a spring, or a well to benefit people. The manifestation of the Buddha, just like described in the Finding Rest in the Nature of Mind, it describes many kinds of emanations of the Buddha, such as road and lamp and doors. Those all could be the manifestations of the Buddha. In Avatamsaka Sutra, it says that profound realization of Tathagata is as vast as space, but comply with all beings they are all pervasive in all worlds. Therefore, we can see that the form of man, form of women, form of mountains and rivers and streams, all of these kinds of emanations could be the manifestations of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Even the ones even the kind of people that we really don't like, we have great hatred even towards, or the very vicious kind of people, our enemies. They could be the manifestations of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. It's only their way of manifestation to liberate sentient beings, and there's such possibility for sure. Or the Buddha also manifests himself in the forms of Devarajas in the celestial realm, the Brahma Rajas, or the Chakravartins, that is the universal monarch, the great kings, the prime ministers nowadays in different countries, and presidents, and so on, and in the forms of laities. And laities over here is not the same as lay practitioners. It more leaning towards the donors, the benefactors, or the kings or ministers, such as the ministers in different governments, or the premiers, or in the form of bhikshus, bhikshunis, the monastics, as well as the lay practitioners, the upasakas or upasikas, or even in the forms of the realized ones, the Shravakas and Arhats. The Arhats are the ones who attain Arhathood, and the Shravakas are the ones who received or who only attained a certain realization, such as the fruition of non-returner, one returner, or the enter, and so on. Or the Pratika Buddhas or Bodhisattvas, in order to accomplish the conversion and the deliverance of these sentient beings. This form of the Buddha is not only form that I have manifested before them. Nowadays, people, whenever they go to temples and monasteries, they would view the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as the ones who are here to guide sentient beings onto the path of the Dharma, to liberate them, but they don't pay reverence to the other monastics or the other Brahmas or the other lay practitioners and so on. But you never know, they could be the manifestations of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, because the Buddha have said it himself that when he liberates sentient beings, he could come into this world with all different kinds of forms to liberate beings. According to Han Buddhism, in Hansan Temple, some said that certain monks are the manifestations of Manjushri or Samadabhadra, especially Master Qingding. Some said that he is the reincarnation or the manifestation of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. Indeed, there are the ones that's probably just the blind faith and the rumor created by disciples, but there are definitely great manifestations of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Some great masters are commonly acknowledged. Tritsum Ditsen, for example, is considered as the manifestation of Manjushri, and Songtsam Gempo is manifestation of Avalokiteshvara, and Botowa is manifestation of Samadabhadra, I think. So there are all kinds of commonly recognized great masters. Pontsog Rinpoche, I have always considered him as the manifestation of Manjushri. In fact, I consider he is no other than Manjushri himself. I think let it be other people could recognize what I consider or not, it doesn't matter to me. But Ponsokro Rinpoche is no other than Manjushri to myself. His speech, his action have always viewed with pure perception by myself. Though I am most inferior in the Sangha, but I have received the uncommon wisdom, blessings, and compassion. I have always considered in this way. In the biography of Ponsokro Rinpoche, some said that he is the reincarnation of Thera Blampa and reincarnation of Dorje Dudrum and manifestation of Pamasambhava, all different kinds of ways of describing him in his past life. I myself, with my own reasons, or maybe not so much as reasons, but throughout my time relying on Ponsokro Rinpoche, I've always viewed Ponsokro Rinpoche as Manjushri himself. So nowadays, when I practice Guru Yoga or supplicate to Ponsokro Rinpoche, I supplicate him in such a way because this is written in the sadhanas and teachings in Ponsokro Rinpoche's composed work at Mount Wutai, the one that we chant all the time in the pure realm of the great sacred site, the 5-peaked mountain. The blessings of Manjushri's wisdom ripen in your mind. Jigme Ponsok at your feet, I pray. Inspire me with your blessings. Transmit the realization of wisdom mind lineage. I myself felt that Ponsokro Rinpoche is no other than Manjushri at all. When he's alive or after he passed away, I've always viewed him no other than Manjushri Bodhisattva and received blessings from him in such a way. I myself, I advocate Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's name and Avalokiteshvara's mantra and other mantras as well. But when I try to visualize Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva as no other than Ponsokro Rinpoche, I think with my dualistic thoughts, maybe it's very difficult for me to visualize him no other than Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. It's much easier to visualize him no other than Manjushri Bodhisattva. This is probably just my own dualistic thoughts or my practice insights. Anyhow, it is not necessary that all Buddhas are there to liberate us. In fact, some Bodhisattvas or sentient beings around us could all be manifestations of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Over here, then the Buddha said that, observe my diligence in this difficult task. For many kalpas of delivering and liberating such stubborn, sinful, and suffering beings. So the Buddha said, look, I have spent so many kalpas in great diligence and worked very hard. Of course, the Buddha won't feel suffering and won't feel tired, but in the manifestation, it is to show, with such kind of manifestation, it is to show it's very difficult to liberate the stubborn beings in this degenerate age. The sinful and suffering beings, Indeed, the beings nowadays are so stubborn. It's very difficult to convince them with Dharma. It's very difficult to benefit them with the Dharma. Even if you were to try to teach them with worldly Dharma, it's very difficult to help them either. Even if the Shakyamuni Buddha comes to them face to face, I think it would be very difficult to help these stubborn beings. So Shakyamuni Buddha said that, look, I have tried very diligently, but it's very difficult to liberate the sentient beings, the stubborn sentient beings. And those beings whose hearts are not yet tamed will be guided by their negative karma to the ill fruitions of their negative actions. If they fall into the suffering realms, experiencing great suffering, remember my instruction to you. Here, the Buddha started entrusting the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, said that here in Ksitigarbha's heaven, I earnestly entrust in you the responsibility for deliverance of all sentient beings from now to the advent of Maitreya. In the 13th chapter, where the chapter of entrusting Dharma teachings, Shakyamuni Buddha also said that the sentient beings that I did not liberate, the ones that are so stubborn to be liberated or to be benefited, then I will entrust all of them to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. And you should deliver all of the sentient beings without exception. Therefore, he then required the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva to liberate all sentient beings. Maybe not everyone can be like the Buddha and Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's aspiration or their effort in terms of their effort of liberating sentient beings. Especially, I think some Dharma teachers in your life of propagating the Dharma, it is the best if you can benefit all of them who have connections to you. But even if you can't, you should entrust that responsibility to others who may have connections to that sentient being as well. Because even if you try your best, sometimes it's very difficult to benefit all of them, to benefit the ones who's very stubborn. Look at the Buddha. He can't deliver all sentient beings to liberation. And in our dark age, don't even talk about liberation. It's hard enough to plant a virtuous seed in the sentient beings. Sometimes the beings can be liberated by Manjushri, but cannot be liberated by Ananda, and sometimes it's the other way around. Therefore, if we try our best to liberate the beings, but when we can't, or even if we try our best, they may harm them, then we should entrust this responsibility to someone who's capable. And maybe they have a better connection, and maybe the other person would be able to guide that person to liberation. So this is quite important to remember. Therefore, over here, the Buddha said that you should remember in Kshitigarbha's heaven, I have entrusted you with this responsibility. From now on, the Saha world beings, from now to when Maitreya Buddha's birth, in some calculations, it says that it is about 5 billion and 670 million years later. And Maitreya Bodhisattva would attain Buddhahood and then reborn in this world to liberate all sentient beings. This is taught by the Buddha. In fact, the Buddha then gave the teaching or entrusted all the emanations of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. The Buddha said that he cannot liberate all of the beings. There are few beings that he cannot liberate. Therefore, the Buddha entrusted him with this task of liberating all sentient beings in this degenerated age. At that time, all the separate emanations realms. All the separate emanations, the emanations of that numbers innumerable, inexpressible, ineffable numbers of emanations of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva from all countless worlds merged into one form. And then he shed, deeply moved by the incredible responsibility entrusted to him, shedding tears of compassion, he addressed the Buddha, saying that for many kalpas I have received guidance from many Buddhas, which allowed me to attain inconceivable divine powers and great wisdom. So Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva over here says that I have attained the incredible divine power. In fact, we can see that from how Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva has immeasurable emanations. I think other bodhisattvas cannot do that. It's not that easy to go into hell realm. Therefore, he then continued to say that for many kalpas I have received, my emanation covered all worlds as numerous as all the sands of trillions of Ganges rivers. In each one of these worlds, I manifest trillions of emanations. Every emanation delivers trillions of beings, enabling them to seek refuge in the three jewels, forever leading the cycle of life and death, and delivering them until they attain the joy of nirvana. So, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva liberates sentient beings by manifest inexpressible emanations and deliver the innumerable sentient beings to take refuge in the three jewels. This is quite important. After taking refuge, let you be monastic or lay practitioners, if you did not create many negative karmas in this lifetime, you pay reverence to the three jewels and the Guru, have a pure perception, and practice diligently, and maintain your view before death, and maintain your action before death, and keep practicing, then people who take refuge in the three jewels, according to remembering the three jewels sutra, it says that such kind of person would definitely not fall into the three lower realms. This is quite important. Therefore, to take refuge in the three jewels and then leave birth and death, eventually attain nirvana. This is the capacity, the courage, and the power of aspiration of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. In the 10 Chakras Sutra of Ksitigarbha, it says that the courageous one named Ksitigarbha appears in the form of monastic. Over here, Ksitigarbha means store of merit. Also has the meaning of courageously liberating sentient beings, and he is in the form, or he manifests in the form of monastic, of celibate. Over here in the 10 Chakras Sutra, also it says that he has a monastic form, or manifests in the monastic form. According to the 8 great bodhisattvas biography, it says that he has the Sambhogakaya manifestation. There are 2 types of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva's image. One is holding the jewel vase and the wish-fulfilling jewel. That is the symbol or the signs of the motifs of Mipa Rinpoche's teaching of the 8 auspicious ones. There is another one, that one hand holding the wish-fulfilling jewel, the other one's a plant. So when you want to practice, you can practice by visualizing him having the same form as the Tibetan Buddhism's form, where he looks like such, holding a wish-fulfilling jewel and a vase. Or you can practice the visualization based on the Han Buddhism tradition, the one holding a cane, the monastic with a monastic form. In lots of the stories and experiences of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, or experiences relating to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, in fact, the experiences are that people would see him or experience him in the monastic form. So let it be a Thangka painting in the Tibetan tradition or the Chinese tradition, they're all fine. It depends on your faith. And then, if you have performed any virtuous deeds in the Buddha Dharma, as long as you've practiced virtuous deeds in the Shakyamuni Buddha's Dharma or under Shakyamuni Buddha's teaching, even if it's as small as a strand of hair, a droplet of water, even if it's so tiny as a strand of hair, a droplet of water, a grain of sand, a speck of dust, or even a bit of hair, I shall gradually deliver and liberate them, enabling them to attain great benefits. Therefore, with practice of Ksitigarbha Sutra or visualizing the image of Ksitigarbha's image or the mantra, in fact, we're creating the connection to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. This is really the best kind of connection. So, for people who have never practiced any virtuous deeds, there's no way to gain liberation. But even if you have a tiny bit of virtuous deed, then there will be possibilities. The old saying, do not neglect insignificant virtuous deeds, nor adapt trivial unvirtuous deeds. Some people would think that if I only prostrate one, make one prostration today or make one lamp, what's the big benefit of it? You shouldn't think in such a way. Even if we chant the name of Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, it would be a great benefit.
Shangchu Senhua Senhua Chenpo Sayi Nyambo La Shang Zanglong Chodo Kyoso Shangchu Senhua Senhua Chenpo Sayi Nyambo La Shang Zanglong Chodo Kyoso Shangchu Senhua Senhua Chenpo Sayi Nyambo La Shang Zanglong Chodo Kyoso Shangchu Senhua Senhua Chenpo Sayi Nyambo La Shang Zanglong Chodo Kyosun Shangchu Senhua Senhua Chenpo Sayi Nyambo La Shang Zanglong Chodo Kyosun Je Wo Sayi Nyambo Chi Tu Chi Dong Zabar Monong Jin Sui Ni Bi Lame Yi Shi Jim Chi Chen Zhang Anyhow,
over here, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva then promised to Shakyamuni Buddha, saying that even if the beings practice any tiny bit of virtuous deeds, I will try my best and I will liberate them. I will lead them to liberation. And then He continued to say that I only hope that world-honored one does not worry about the deliverance of these beings of the future generation with negative karma, so you should entrust all these sentient beings to me. And then he stated this three times to the Buddha. He said it 3 times, saying that I only hope that the world-honored one does not worry about the deliverance of these beings of the future generation with negative karma. So even if the ones who's the most inferior and have lots of negative karmas, you can entrust these sentient beings to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva feels that he's very confident in liberate the beings who's the most inferior, and he has skillful means to tame them. Indeed, in this dark age, to liberate sentient beings or to tame our own afflictions, we should supplicate to Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva. And because of his aspiration, because of his vow in front of Shakyamuni Buddha, the sentient beings in the degenerated age having the opportunity to encounter Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, it is definitely a miracle, because with all kinds of favorable conditions and causes and conditions, he has different ways of liberating sentient beings. The beings nowadays is definitely undergoing lots of suffering, and it's such a pity that they're suffering so much. So over here, Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva stated in front of Buddha for 3 times, saying that you can entrust me with all the inferior beings. I have ways of taming them. I have ways of liberating them. That's the vow that's made by Ksitigarbha. The beings living in degenerated age, there are all kinds of chaos going on. The earth, water, fire, and wind, the war, and there's nothing to compare to the prosperity that was in Tang Dynasty. Even in the modern times, in the past 30, 40 years, all kinds of calamities that's just getting stronger and stronger and more chaotic than ever. And because of all kinds of causes and conditions, many great masters have passed into parinirvana, all kinds of bad news. And in terms of the sentient beings, afflictions, and the greed and anger, ignorance, jealousy, arrogance, flattering, and frivolousness, and the root afflictions as well as the branch afflictions are like the waves of the ocean. It's increasing day by day. So in this time, for the sentient beings who are suffering so much, we definitely need the bodhisattvas and Buddhas who has great compassion. Otherwise, it's very difficult to transform, to change the evil deeds and evil connections of the sentient beings. In the beginning of the Kalpa, when the Dharma was very prosperous, when the sentient beings' afflictions are still very little, and there were lots of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the ones who attained fruition, the ones who gained realization, and lots of favorable conditions. But nowadays, since we're in this degenerated age, we should definitely supplicate to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas with great strength and great power, such as Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, like Tara, like Padmasambhava. And if we were to supplicate to them with great devotion and faith, maybe we can transform, maybe we can change the karma right now. And then at the end, the Buddha praised Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, saying, "Excellent, excellent. I shall help you to rejoice. I shall rejoice whatever you're doing. You will be able to fulfill the great vows you took in all these kalpas. The vow you took in the vow you took in all these kalpas, in all the past kalpas, and the universal deliverance will be soon completed, and you shall finally achieve Buddhahood." So at the end, it says that when all the beings are delivered when he's finished with and completed all the propagation of Dharma benefiting sentient beings, then Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva will attain Buddhahood. We should stop here today.
Sonam dayi tamsha zabanya tonna nipe jana tamsha jangkir gana ji tsubam sonen ro